Well, we can slice this into news. I forgot to bring it up earlier, but do you remember last week when I talked about people deciding, oh, this company has wasted enough time, they're too much faffing around, we're going to do it ourselves, because Paper Mario had weird restrictions placed upon it, and people made bug fables instead. Well, it just so happens Lethal League developers Team Reptile are creating a Jet Set Radio spiritual successor.
I've seen this. This looks fucking awesome.
Called Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, which is a difficult title to say, but hey.
Those guys, Lethal League, which I've played, and the second one, which I haven't played, but looks wonderful, and I look forward to picking up at some point. Mm-hmm. That's a damn tight and well-designed game. The first one, at least, is also brimming with personality and cool aesthetics. So this, I feel very comfortable. I mean, Jet Set Radio, which I've played, is a bit jank.
It is. It's old, it's an old... Was it a Dreamcast game?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
The bar to accessibility is not super high, so there's a minimum threshold of playability there that they just need to just about stride over, and it's a major success. Put it that way. And I've already seen how it looks, and it looks great. So, it seems like a set win.
Lethal League has an aesthetic, and you look at it and you go, man, they really took their influence from Jet Set Radio, huh? It's a shame that Sega has been sitting on their laurels and refuses to do anything about the franchise, at which point Team Reptile is like, well, guess what, bitch, we're hitting the button, let's go. Is the soundtrack being made by Too Mellow? You know what, I've got homework for you for this week.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry, it's nothing too strenuous. I want you to look up on YouTube a music artist called Too Mellow. That's two, the numeral 2, Mello.
Okay.
And he does music in the fashion of Jet Set Radio. He's got an album out called Memories of Tokyoto, I think.
Right, okay, cool.
A full album. It's only about an hour long. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. If you get enough of it and you go, I've got the gist, you can stop. My homework for you this week is to listen to that album and tell me what you think. Just to, get you hyped for Bomb Rush Cyberfunk.
I will, not even for next week. What I'll do is I'll listen to it after we finish recording, and I'll splice in a very quick opinion.
Oh, okay, sure.
Into the end of this conversation.
Whack.
Yeah, exactly. To summarize on the scale of bummer to whack. How I felt.
I suppose you should clarify.
I feel it's better to not clarify.
Oh, okay. Very well.
Music that's violently smooth. It's Jet Set Radio. Even if you're locked up in the joint, don't forget to turn on that radio.
All right, then why don't we try news first this time? You mentioned last time that we end typically on a damp FUD, and I feel like that might be to do with the news. Although, to be fair, this is a busy news week, so it might have been the worst exception to try this out on. But why don't we'll switch it around, see how it goes.
All right. Well, there's been no shortage of things today. I suppose on a personal note, we have Sonic 2, the movie.
Or
is it Sonic the Movie 2? No, it'd be Sonic 2 the movie, because Tails is in it, so there you go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, spoilers, Tails is in Sonic 2.
Oh yeah, that was the part of the Avengers end credit scene.
Tails is the Nick Fury of the Sonic franchise. We're putting together an initiative. We're calling it Sonic Heroes.
Oh no. That's you know what, to be fair, I'd be into that.
Of course you would, Lee. Of course we would.
Yeah.
What is irony? We don't know.
I mean, we both went to see the film
together.
Together,
that's an important note I think you need to make.
As full-grown adults, and we both enjoyed it, right? I don't know. I seem to remember you enjoying it to a certain degree.
Yes, I enjoyed it to a certain degree.
I just wanted to have you tacitly admit that yourself.
Oh, you wanted that on the record, huh?
Yeah, no, I didn't want to have to put the words in your mouth. I wanted you to put the words in your mouth. Yeah, so as fanboys for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie,
Jeez, my face.
that's where you stand, right?
Sure.
We had a bit of speculation after seeing the thirst one. Yeah.
Freudian slip there. Like.
So we had a little bit of speculation as to what the sequels could entail. So,
we did. Inevitably. Mostly, my speculation was mostly tied to the longevity of the series as a film franchise, and that you could project how confident they were in the project based on the number of Sonic characters that they would be introducing per film. Mm-hmm. For instance, so far we can pretty confidently see Tails is going to be in Sonic 2, naturally. They might put Knuckles in, and if they just do Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, then that they must be fairly confident, because they're taking their time, right?
Yeah, sure.
They
set up the groundwork in the first one, that it had this kind of quasi Sonic Adventure angle to it, with the echidnas being this sort of master race in Sonic's origin world. So they've already kind of let slip the veil that they have a lot of high-minded schemes and plans for where this series was to go.
Mm-hmm. I should clarify that what I mean by they had confidence is that if they had, for instance, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Shadow, Rouge, and whoever, then it would be like, they have no confidence in this franchise, it's dead. It's like, gotta cram them all in while they can, because they know they're not gonna get the chance again. But since it's only the three of them, you can sort of infer that's like, alright, they're taking their time.
Yeah.
They know that they've got room to breathe, so they're gonna pace it out.
To be fair, the last time we talked about this, we weren't entirely certain how successful the film was going to be. At this point, we can now look at it. I'm pretty sure. I haven't got the number. Give me 2 seconds. Yeah, on a budget of somewhere between 81 to 95 million, its box office returns were 306.8 million, according to Wikipedia. Yeah, no, I mean, that's fucking astounding. And so I would hope that gives them the confidence to play the long game. You know, we talked about at the time about what would it be like if they were to do this smart. Well, we talked a little more about whether they would do Sonic CD second or third, like they would introduce Metal Sonic as a big bad.
I imagine that would probably be third if I were to guess. My prediction is that now that they've established the mythos, the Sonic mythos, is that now that they're doing Sonic 2, they can have Tails and they can have Knuckles, and they can do the Sonic 3 story, which is Eggman tricks Knuckles into beating up Sonic on his behalf, and this is the introduction of the Chaos Emeralds and whatnot.
I see. I think storytelling wise, the Echidna backstory thing that they had going on seems like a long game third entry wrap up deal, and so that's why I feel like they should have a big deal with Knuckles in the third one rather than the second one, because then you kind of ruin long-term story potential too early if you kind of drag him in his world. But you're probably right. What I think the biggest fear in my head is Tails' arrival signals some sort of time travel, which they use to introduce all the elements you just described would be the fucking lack of confidence. You know, like his appearance there was like, Sonic, we
have to go back.
I'm from the main timeline. I've come to recruit you because Sonic Forces is happening in our world. And you there's a whole bunch of shit you don't know yet, and we just want to jump straight to it.
Sonic, beware the White Devil! Divation Teufel!
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean...
So Sonic 2 is going to be the Sonic 3 plotline. Sonic 3 is going to be the Sonic CD plotline. And, I don't know, roughly around Sonic 6 is where Shadow assassinates the President of the United States or something.
Alright, so we got the big news this week was Xbox One Series Xbox X had its...
Yes, I actually watched this at your urging, which is...
I did give you some warning, because there was a lot in it, and I didn't want to have to creep up on you on Saturday and go like, oh, by the way, there's like an hour of Xbox material that I'm going to talk about. It's going to be really hard to keep up with if you have to quickly look at videos every 5 minutes.
Well, I have to say, I'm very glad that you did encourage me to watch it, because I was surprised by how much of it was of interest to me in particular.
Really? And not just because Psychonauts 2 was in there?
Psychonauts 2 is, well, I suppose we may as well get into it. Did you ever play the original Psychonauts?
I played... it's weird. Have you ever heard of something called Game Tap?
No, not off the top of my head, I don't think. Why?
So,
is that like Game Spy or something?
It was something like... It was like kind of more like what the Game Pass is now, where you bought a subscription and you got a library of games that changed periodically, and it was for PC. And in that, I got a free trial of it years and years and years ago. And with that free trial, I tried out Psychonauts, and I had a really good time for the hour that I was allowed to play it. And then I have never been able to pick it up since. Apparently, it's on PlayStation though, so it's like, and maybe Switch. So it's definitely
on Steam as well.
And yeah, definitely Steam. So it's something that I have. It's obviously very easy to get my hands on. I just haven't fucking done it.
I completed Psychonauts on the PC quite a few years ago. It was a part of a Humble Bundle, I think.
Cool.
And that is a game that, in my opinion, is best experienced sitting next to somebody who is playing it, because God, it plays like shit.
Really?
It plays like shit. Especially the last level in particular. Oh, just the world is fantastic. The characters are fantastic. The writing's fantastic. Like, it's really funny. It's really charming. You like everybody. But oh my goodness, is it a nightmare to play. Especially the last level, which is like, everyone agrees is just abysmal. So I'm very much looking forward to Psychonauts 2 getting the, okay, put on your big boy trousers. Now you're not an indie studio anymore. You've got like the backing of a juggernaut behind you. Make it actually good now. Whenever Tim Schafer isn't grappling with his debilitating addiction to celebrity voiceovers.
or just addiction to Jack Black. Man can't quit him.
Yeah, it just seems to be Jack Black. I'm very glad that they... it was noteworthy, in my opinion, that during the footage they had of the behind-the-scenes stuff, that they showed Tim Schafer and Jack Black in the same room together at the same time.
Thus dispelling the constant rumor that they are one and the same.
Exactly.
Psychonauts 2 is still coming out to everything else, though, isn't it? Because it'd be a real shame to not get a chance to play it. It did look...
Yeah, we live in a world where world premiere doesn't actually mean anything.
Yes, Psychonauts 2 coming to where all good games are, so which essentially translates to everything but the Switch. Yeah, but I mean, it looked fucking gorgeous, and I don't remember the platforming being terrible, but then it was first level, and most of it was like, there wasn't really any platforming in the open world section, so it was just...
Yeah, as it gets on, you have to start doing precision platforming, and you're like, oh no.
That's one of my favorite genres of games. So I usually have a good ball with a 3D platformer. So I will definitely, in the course of this podcast, get around to playing Psychonauts and talking about it. Right, I mean, there's so much shit to burn through with this Xbox thing. Shall we hit the big gun and kind of strike it in order from here?
Halo Infinite, I take it, is what you mean by that.
What's your thoughts?
I feel like I've really fallen asleep on the Halo franchise, which is a shame, because the last one I played, back when dinosaurs walked the earth, was Halo Combat Evolved, the first one on the PC, and I liked it a lot. I played for it multiple times. It was really good. And then I tried to play Halo 2. I was really excited to play Halo 2, but that was shackled to the Xbox, a console that I didn't own. And it was also shackled to Windows Vista. Remember back in the day? Back in the dark ages when games were shackled to operating systems as well as platforms.
Jesus fucking Christ, man. Oh yeah, I totally forgot all
about that. Which basically ended dead my ability to play the rest of that franchise. As for Halo Infinite, it looks nice. It looks very colorful. That's one thing I always liked about Halo, is that even during it lived through the dark ages.
Yeah. The brown days.
The brown ages, yeah, I should say. But it managed to retain its colourful palette throughout, which is very good of it. Very good integrity. That's nice. It survived the modern military shooter, the World War II shooter era. You know, they were off doing all their thing with their browns and their greys.
It held on strong, and then the hero shooter took over, and then after that the Fortnite Battle Royale came in, and it was back at home, baby. Now it just looked like Fortnite on steroids. Did it strike you as a kind of anemic Doom Eternal?
Well, I mean, the grappling hook definitely seems a bit derivative.
Mm-hmm. Not even just that; it didn't really look satisfying to use. It
looked very half-hearted.
Yeah, you kind of just slowly glide towards enemies, and then you hit the right trigger to bash them on the head like you normally would.
Elucidate or sanity check me on something, which is, do people really think Master Chief is like a really interesting character?
I don't know. I've never known this. He's
because
he said I struggle. The word like catches in my throat, but he is an iconic character.
Oh, he's certainly iconic because he's emblematic of like this juggernaut franchise, right? You know. But whenever I was watching crowd reaction videos to the announcement of Halo Infinite from like E3 a few years ago, the character wipes dust away from spaceship windscreen, right, and you see Master Chief floating around in space, and the crowd goes wild. And I always wondered, is that because like is Master Chief some kind of incredibly charismatic figure that all these people have been deluded into thinking is a good, interesting character, or are they just happy to see more Halo? I assume it's the latter.
But I did have a sensation this time around with his sort of dry back and forth with the pilot in this trailer. Mm-hmm. That maybe there is a Kazuma Kiryu kind of...
What, like a straight man?
Yeah, exactly. He's kind of curt and doesn't really understand what's going on. But now I'm saying that, I have been playing Yakuza, and actually Kazuma does, if anything, he's earnest. He's angry, yeah. but he's very... he certainly takes personally everything around him, from the smallest of incidences to the greatest of dramas. He, for some reason, likes to get tangled in while also keeping his emotions in check about it. I don't know, he's a very fascinating character. And I just kind of wondered if Master Chief had some of the same appeal. But now that I think about it a little more, his sort of detached demeanor isn't exactly the same thing. He just seems above it all. Kazuma Kiryu does not seem above it all. He seems baffled within it all.
That's about all I can really say other than looks good. Looks, Halo's pretty. It's a pretty franchise. It looks pretty. It looks colorful. It looks like I want to, well, I don't want to be there because that world is fucked up. But, I want to sit in Halo and have a picnic. And that's about all I can really say for it.
Yeah. I watched the Xbox event with Maria, my wife Maria, and she said it looked like shit Destiny, which I thought was pretty funny.
Oh, she doesn't know about the genetics
exactly
behind
She didn't know what landmine she was stepping on there. But I thought that was pretty great. State of Decay 3. What does pregame discharge say? No game, no hype, them's the rules.
Zombie game. Zombie. Much zombie. Yeah, the consensus seems to be that, hey, State of Decay is a good franchise with a lot of neat ideas in it. It's just jank as fuck, and they never seem to really fix that. It's a pre-rendered cutscene. That just means we got nothing.
Yeah.
Got nothing, guys.
Yeah.
But we need to announce something, so here you go.
Were you as excited at the possibility as I was that even in this digital event, they were going to show a real car during the Forza announcement?
I didn't think it wasn't that kind of event. At E3 certainly, but not this Xbox thing.
I was so
there's
ready
no stage.
for it. I was ready for them to cut to like real dude, like they did before with Henry Ford III at the E3 stage. Cut to him in his office with a car in the background, and he's like, "We're really excited to say that the Ford cars are going to be in the next Forza." You're like, "Of course they're going to be in it."
The Model T, it's making its way to Forza Forever.
Yeah, I wrote down Forza Forever. It is. They seem to be going soft reboot on this. It's just called Forza Motorsport. How can you reboot that? Who cares? It's Forza. Everwild.
Oh, is this a hippie millennial druid game.
Yeah, from Rare.
Yeah, I was looking at all these characters. Look at all how suspiciously young these characters are with their grey hair.
Well, that's because they're channeling the youth and vigor of the deer god.
They've got the divine... No, not divine. They've got the natural energy. The chi. The feng shui. They've aligned their chakras, Lee.
Mm-hmm. The earthly sources.
They've called upon the Princess Mononoke forest spirit. They healed the deer.
They healed the deer. It didn't actually show us what the hell this plays like or anything, so it's hard to be very excited.
No, we have nothing to go on, so we can just make fun of it in a really superficial manner.
I like that the I think director who was at the end of it just seemed very thankful that it was getting made, and that was quite adorable.
Yeah, just happy to be working. Hey, do you remember that part from Princess Mononoke where Lady Eboshi was like, "Watch closely and I will show you how to kill a god"? That was pretty cool. I was thinking to myself, man, Princess Mononoke was a good movie, which is not really, I think what they want me to be thinking when I'm watching this trailer.
Well, they're not going to make a fucking Princess Mononoke game, so...
Man, that would be sick, though.
I don't see why they couldn't either. I mean, you don't have to...
Well, I mean, Ghibli is why.
Tell me why they made this. That's what I've written here. The game is called Tell Me Why. It's by Don't Nod, if you're struggling to remember what the fuck this was.
Sorry, I saw you had a very clever, a very witty joke in the show notes, which was "Tell me why they made this," and I just assumed that I had fallen asleep during a part of the presentation and missed that part.
No, it just felt like that because it was seemingly about 5 minutes of teenagers walking around a town having broken conversations with each other, and then a flash of like a witch at the end.
I was thinking, this looks like a Life is... What? Like, Don't Nod? It's like, are these the Life is Strange people? Yes, it is.
Of course it fucking is.
What a surprise.
Outer Worlds got some DLC. This is where shit got interesting. It reminded me that they own Obsidian now.
Obsidian have been doing work. They've been busy, haven't they?
They kept this fucking presentation on the fucking track.
Like, I woke up for fucking Obsidian, that's for sure. And you know what?
I clapped.
Do you know what's really fucking funny? I was in amazement during this portion of the expo because the Outer Worlds, right? You know, Fallout 76 didn't do too well, so to speak. And then Obsidian, the creators of the original Fallout, who had suffered under Bethesda's yoke for a few years, and who made Fallout New Vegas, you know, the good one. They basically snuck into Bethesda's headquarters, went up to Todd Howard's fridge, and stole his lunch, and ate his lunch, and made Fallout but better. They made the Outer Worlds, right?
Yep.
And then, nary 10 minutes later, after I thought this to myself, what had they only gone and done, Lee? What have they gone and done? I can't believe it. The cheeky bastards. They've only gone and do it again. They snuck into his office. You know, he upped the security after last time, and they did it again. They ate his lunch. They're making Skyrim. They're making Skyrim a bit better. Because, you know, Elder Scrolls has been languishing for so long now. It's like, yep, well, we're doing Skyrim now. What is it called? It's called Avowed. And yes, as I was watching it, I was like, is this? And then I looked it up, and yes, it is set in the Pillars of Eternity universe, which makes me very, very happy.
100%. It was I think maybe the only thing in the entire presentation that I was actually livid with jealousy.
Yeah, genuine excitement. I'm like, what? What? No way! Crazy!
The amount of things that would need to happen for me to own an Xbox would be truly monumental. But legitimately, a Pillars of Eternity but Elder Scrolls game. I mean, fuck me, man. How did they know that's what I want? I just can't... The sheer balls of it, I can't believe they're doing it.
I know, it's like... It's simultaneously obvious in retrospect, and yet, God, the chutzpah. I can't believe it. That they would just slap Todd in the face twice in a row.
And in between that, they squeezed in an also quite charming-looking Honey, I Shrunk the Kids simulator.
Oh yeah, they're working on that too, huh?
Yeah, that's them as well. They really fucking I'm sitting like, yes, master, you need games. The trailer for that genuinely made me laugh.
Oh yeah, they had Fergus Urquhart out, and I was like, I recognize this guy. What's he from? And I glanced in the background and I saw the massive Pillars of Eternity logo they had in the background. And I'm like, oh yes, he's from the documentary. Yeah, I like this guy. This guy's cool.
There's a game called As Dusk Falls, which was don't nod, but concept art.
Oh yes, it's the Quantic Dream on a budget. That's what it seemed to me. Including the French showrunner. I had like a weird sort of like precognition moment when they were introducing the studio, and they were introducing the head lady. You know, the lady with the French accent, the French lady.
Sure.
And she was talking, and I was looking at her, and I was going, "You seem really, really familiar," and I don't know why. And for some reason, I was thinking of, like, you know, Lauren from Heavy Rain, like, "Oh, Mr. Shelby, Scott Shelby," you know, French prostitute lady.
Yes.
I was thinking to myself, "No, that's not her. That's not her.
her.
Just because they've got a French accent, come on, Lauren, skip with it."
Yeah.
And then, what a surprise! This game it's a Quantic Dream game, but on a budget. So I was like, yeah, I was getting a David Cage vibe.
But I just want to check what the fuck this company is. Now that you bring it up from Interior/Night. Now did I hear that these are people from Quantic Dream?
No way.
Yeah, game studio.
In that case, you know, they're probably refugees because Quantic Dream is probably a shitty place to work, from what I hear.
Yeah, 100%.
So you know what? Do you have her name there?
Yes, Caroline Marshall. She was the former lead game director for Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls.
Damn, how about that, man? Man, I just had I peered into a crystal ball and I was like, Quantic Dream. Why am I feeling Quantic Dream?
I guess I can look up. I'm just curious now. Who played? What was her name? Madeline? No, it's Madeline's the other girl. Yeah. Lauren
Winters.
Winters. Yes, it's not her. That was a woman called Ariel Bachelon.
I see.
Very good. Still, there were ties. Your 5 was correct. Anyway, this guy, what can you even say about it? These narrative games are hard sells in trailer form. It was cool that it was so full of art, but it definitely looked like Quantic Dream on a budget, and it turns out that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Hellblade 2 team takes holiday to Iceland.
Yes, I did notice that as well. I was thinking to myself as they were telling us about their, how did they describe it, location scouters?
That's right.
Is that what they?
They have those in the films
location
industry,
scouts.
So I mean,
yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because I figured you would be able to give me the inside scoop on this. Like, who is it exactly that does the location scouting? And is it like the art team?
It depends. It depends on how important and how pivotal it is. Usually there's a locations department who will do the majority of the groundwork and on the groundwork. But when it comes to major decisions, usually they'll fly out the key development staff or whatever, or production staff, to agree on certain things. And it depends. In film, you know, like, you have to shoot there, so whoever's involved intrinsically in what the whole thing looks like will probably go see it before they decide they're going to shoot there. In games, I imagine they just send the development team on holiday to take pictures and then compile everything, because how can there surely can't really be a locations department in video games.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, because in film, like, there's logistics involved, right? But with video games, it's like, hey, send the art team out, get them to take a bunch of photos, you know, soak in the vibes, take some video footage and get some reference material. It must be the cushiest job in the industry that I know of.
I mean, like, I remember for Sonic Adventure, they took location scouting to, like, I guess Peru or the sort of Aztec-y areas to take pictures of temples and stuff. And there's pictures of, like, Yuji Naka on the ground outside these old temples that he then worked into the original Sonic Adventure on that side of the game. So, I mean, yeah, location scouts, Yuji Naka.
Especially video game location scouts where there's no actual logistics and filming involved. So it's like, hey, you know what? Respect the hustle. I would do the same.
The balls of it being in this presentation is just fucking hilarious. You're like, guys, we have so little to show you of the development of this game that we literally have holiday photos. And that's it. You can go online and see our holiday photos. They might influence the design of the game. You never know.
They'll influence a couple of levels.
Yeah. So that was fucking hilarious. Here's the thing. It's a footnote here. And it's really not interesting news in general, but I wanted to put it in because it was one other reason I kind of envy the Xbox crowd this year, was the Destiny 2 DLC coming out, which in itself is not news. These things, these are like the seasons. These are probably literally referred to as seasons to some degree internally. New season of Destiny 2. What I found interesting and genuinely envious on the Xbox side of things is their damn Game Pass. With Destiny 2 being in there, Destiny 2 being a game that I played and kind of liked until, as usual, they introduced the DLC, and I do not go in for that shit. I fall off the bandwagon, but it looks like you can get the fucking Game Pass and then you just automatically get the next pack of Destiny 2 included. That's a fucking good deal for however long that stays. You know, that's like, not only do you get a fucking access to Halo Infinite without having to pay for it, which I mean is a pretty sweet deal, but, you know, you get to keep up with, like, a game that's quite fun and never have to worry about being out of the loop for any real amount of time. That's a good way to use a Netflix-style system for these type of games, and I'm genuinely envious. Not that I would ever, like, I'm too past the point to ever get suckered back into Destiny, but, I mean, I still think, like, if I had that and played Destiny, then I could still be playing Destiny today, so, interesting footnote.
So Stalker, huh?
I don't know anything about Stalker.
The extent of my knowledge of Stalker is that it's people in hoodies and hazmat suits having faction battles in and around Chernobyl and Pripyat, and that's about it.
That's what a rough world for this to come back to.
It's like Metro. It's
like Metro is what I was just about to say.
Stalker's been on my to-do list for some time, but it's in that sort of classic PC game wish list.
Mm-hmm.
It's an example of a very, very particular genre, if genre is the right word. A subset of games. You ever heard of Eurojank?
I believe I have, actually.
So basically a sort of like mid-tier, on a budget, Eastern European made games. Like the original Witcher was Eurojank.
Yes, of course.
Stalker was Eurojank. CD Projekt Red were in fact the Eurojank purveyors du jour up until The Witcher 3, at which point they went mainstream.
We didn't see anything of Stalker 2.
No, you saw a guy in a hoodie with a gas mask
walking around the
in an industrial area, turn towards the camera in a sort of way to go, hey, you recognize me? It's a Stalker game. And you go, it's a Stalker game, and then the titles come up saying it's a Stalker game.
Yeah.
Yep, that's about all we can say.
That's it. Warhammer showed up.
Oh, yes, it did. Warhammer fans rubbing their hands with glee as they get a fourth Left 4 Dead game in a row.
Are these any good?
Vermintide is excellent.
Right.
Okay, so let me go through them, right? So, Warhammer Vermintide, The End Times, that's good. Vermintide 2, also very good. In the first one, it's Skaven. In the second one, it's Skaven and Nurgle cultists, I think. Then there was Warhammer 40k. There was a Space Hulk one, wasn't there? Let me double check. Let's see. Was it the Dark Angels? Where you play as the Dark Angels chapter of the Space Marines.
Was it Battlefleet Gothic Armada?
No, that was a tactical naval warfare game.
Was it Space Hulk Deathwing?
Yes, that's the one. That one's really strange because this game that's coming out now, which is Darktide, Warhammer 40k Darktide, it seems to be very, very similar to Deathwing, but it's being made by different studios, but the premise is otherwise identical, which is you go into derelict spaceship, there is lots of enemies there, you must kill them. Except in Deathwing, you play as Space Marines, and you're fighting Tyranids. And in the new one, Darktide, you're playing as Imperial Guard, or Astra Militarum, if you want to be fancy about it.
I don't.
And you're fighting what appears to be... Well, I'm going to be, because...
Of course, you need this.
I suspect we're going to have a real Mike Stoklaza and Jay Bauman Star Trek dynamic regarding Warhammer in the future going forth. Which is where I'll be like, hey, do you remember that time in Warhammer 40k? And you'll be like, no. Well, you're the Imperial Guard fighting Nurglite cultists.
Deathwing, published by Focus Home Interactive, who I believe, literally at the moment, are home to the Eurojank genre.
Well, then there you go. It all ties together.
But yeah, they're the Plague Tale Innocence publishers, that kind of thing.
Oh, did they do Vampire?
Yes, they did.
And they did Greedfall as well. Yes, they would be the go-to... They're the go-to Eurojank company these days.
Yeah. Pretty good. And they also own Deck 13 stuff, don't they? They just acquired Deck 13 this year. who are the Surge guys.
Ah, yes.
Who
They're also Euro.
They're German.
Fits.
They're Eurojack as fuck. Did you see in Dark Bartosz always playing the
Yes,
Surge?
he's playing the Surge.
I thought that was fucking hilarious.
I felt like such a, you know that meme going around of Leo in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where it points at the screen and goes, "It's the thing. There it is. That's the thing."
Yeah.
I basically, like, even though I'm sitting there on my own watching Dark, I saw Bartosz playing the Surge. I was like, "Oh, it's that, it's
Yeah, it's the space one. That's not the fantasy one. That's not Dark Souls.
it's the Surge." I got it eventually, but by that point the scene was over, and I felt very foolish.
I knew it instantly and turned to Maria. I was like, "That's a German-made game called the Surge." To absolute dead-eyed, who gives a shit?
I'm sure she was very impressed.
Yeah, it was worth it.
In any case, the new one, 40k Darktide, it's being made by the same people who made Vermintide, which is probably the naming convention that they've gone for there.
Yeah, I see
very
that.
clever.
There's also The Medium by Bloober Team.
Oh, yes, this is the one where it's like, it starts off Silent Hill, and it only gets more Silent Hill as time goes by.
Yeah, I kind of felt like it started off Silent Hill and got more and more control as time went by.
Yeah, it just gave me a Control vibe as well. I mean, it's got the split mechanic between the normal world and the other world, which is very Silent Hill. Although it seemed weird because it seemed to imply that you exist in both worlds at once. You're just shifting your perspective from one to the other.
In my head, right, so it sounded like the trailer was kind of showing you like the both worlds run at the same time, and I thought maybe that's the gameplay. Like, you have two screens up at the same time, with two different environments, but you're controlling
Oh, it's
both.
like split screen.
Yeah, you're controlling the character with
Oh.
the same actions, but there are two worlds going on, each with their own hazards that you have to avoid simultaneously.
Oh, that is neat, if that's true.
If true.
Big if true.
Hard to say if that works for horror, but certainly for like an action, spooky, atmospheric action game, that could be quite fun. And it looked cool.
It does solve the a problem a lot of the later Western developed Silent Hill games had, which is they made it so that the other world was really dangerous, but the normal world, or at least like the foggy world, wasn't all that dangerous by comparison. So you're like, oh, as soon as you're out of the other world, you're safe, right? So you stop being scared.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you're not scared, right?
What a breath of fresh air. Now I know when I want to be scared.
Yes, now I know when to be scared and when not to be scared, which sort of, sucks the tension out of a horror game.
100%.
So they've tried addressing that now in this one by making sure that you're in both worlds at once at any time, and there's hazards for both, so you're never quite at ease.
Yeah, it's a good concept,
at least in
theory.
Are you ready for the greatest fantasy game of all time, Lee? Are you ready?
Oh my god. I thought I was going nuts when they announced this.
Are you ready to enjoy and experience the likes of which you have never seen before? I should have really got like a list of quotes that I could say at you.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do that now.
An adventure generations in the making.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's good.
What was it actually called? It wasn't called Phantasy Star 2 Retread.
Oh, that's what we're talking about. Two different games here.
Oh, what?
I'm talking
can't believe
about Fable. There is nothing that is going to make people hate you more and love you more than telling the truth. No, that's Stefan Molyneux. I need to look up Peter Molyneux.
Oh yeah, Jesus. Yeah, don't go dip the toes into Stefan. That's a whole different type of crazy.
Oh, I've got a Jason Schreier article from Kotaku about Peter Molyneux and how he's crying because people called him and all his bullshit.
Why is it so hard to find just a list of his quotes?
Every feature I've ever talked about was in development, but not all made it. Okay, Peter.
Players will be able to adjust the volume from 1 to 100 in increments of 1. You could play the game 100 times and have an entirely different experience. That's great.
Yeah, I noticed the lack of any Peter Molyneux whatsoever in the trailer.
Oh, no shit.
I mean, the moment I saw that it was Fable, I was like, pressing, like, I want you to imagine, when you're at like a hotel room door and you've got like the little eyepiece and you're like desperately trying to like tilting your head in such a way so that you can see further down the hallway than you normally would be able to. Like, you're like, it's like, what? Where is he? Where's
Yeah,
Peter?
yeah.
Where's Peter Molyneux?
It's truly the elephant in the room.
I noticed that it wasn't Lionhead Studios, which is his studio,
Yeah.
I think. It was a different one, wasn't
I
it?
believe Lionhead has been dissolved. They don't exist either.
Oh, it was Sundown? I can't remember the disgusting corporate doublespeak that they use to announce the closure of a studio these days.
Fable is being developed by the Forza Horizons team this time.
Ooh, really? Can they at least get Sean Murray up as like a replacement? No, I've never had any interest in Fable. Never played any of them.
No, me either. I mean, they are on PC, I believe, so it's never out of the realms of possibility. But I mean,
No, for me, Fable is, as a franchise, is inextricably linked with the floating head of Peter Molyneux just spewing lies, just so many lies.
I think we've done enough for Xbox.
Well, what, you don't want to talk about Crossfire X?
I don't even understand Crossfire X.
It looks like every modern military shooter combined into one.
Yeah.
Do you remember when Sunset Overdrive? Do you remember when Sunset Overdrive came out? It had that release trailer with that sort of had a fake out moment where it was meant to look like a really grey, boring, generic modern military shooter, and then like the punk character with all of his color bursts in the door and goes, "Hey,
Not a chance.
took you by surprise there. Not a chance." It looks like the first 15 seconds of that trailer. That's what Crossfire X looks like.
It's week time. We didn't have a jingle for the news.
Ah, fuck. That's because we started with the news, that's why.
You weren't ready.
I'll sneak one in at some point, when you least expect it.
Excellent. How was your week, Lawrence?
I had a week, to my surprise.
Dear God, this is going to be our longest episode ever. Great. Do lead the way.
Let's see. Bloop, bloop, bloop. The news. There you go, nice and isolated, so that you can
It's
just...
going to be a nightmare when it finally hits me that you've done this midway through the show. Then I have to go and try and patch that back in.
That's why I had it nice and isolated. You know, there was a pause before and a pause after.
Oh, very good. I might just leave it where it is.
Anyway, my week. So I finished The Last of Us. Hooray!
Oh, wow. Well done.
Even though it wasn't homework, it was quite possibly the most homework-like game I've ever played. It felt like homework anyway.
And that it became an arduous task to complete.
It wasn't arduous, but it was a task. It definitely felt like an obligation, much in the same way that, I don't know, reading The Catcher in the Rye is an obligation.
Legitimate homework.
Or, sorry, begging your pardon, watching Schindler's List is an obligation.
Oh yeah, like a societal obligation. Mm-hmm. You don't understand the way video games have been going for the last 5 or 10 years if you haven't played The Last of Us on PS3.
I suppose we can have a spoiler cast, a Last of Us Part 1 spoiler cast, that we can plunk at the very end of the episode so that if people want to stop listening, they can do so.
Yeah, so, okay, we'll have that conversation now, and then if you stay tuned to the very end of the episode, you'll hear us talk about Last of Us in candid detail.
I think that was about my week, generally speaking. I've been continuing to play Baba Is You. I said last week that Baba Is You makes you confront your own inadequacy as a person. But I've been, I'll be honest, I've been feeling the contrary, quite the opposite this week.
Oh, it's now empowering?
It is empowering. You're familiar with the expression fresh eyes, where you come back to it after a day's rest, or you look at it after a break, and suddenly
it all clicks.
The beam of light comes down from, you know, the cathedral window and hits you, and you're like, I get it, I understand. Similar thing with Baba Is You, where there'll be times where I'm like, fuck, I'm hit a wall, I can't do it, I've no idea, I don't want to look at a guide, because I know I'm like Batman, right? Like, the moment I kill someone, I'll just not be able to stop. The moment I look at the guide, I'll never stop looking at the guide to get the answers, so I don't want to look at the guide. And then I'll come back a day later, and like, boom, like that, I'm like, oh yeah, here it is, duk, 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 solve the puzzle, and I'll progress like 6 levels, and honestly, it feels magic. Yeah. Like magic. Like, how the fuck is this happening? It's like that pill from Limitless, the Bradley Cooper movie, where it's like, oh, I just get it, boom.
Yeah, you can feel the smooth grooves in your brain getting slightly smoother.
I don't think that means what you think it means. Surely they should be getting more wrinkled, but hey, whatever.
No, because the efficiency is getting better, so they smooth out, do they not?
No, the more surface area you have, like A smooth brain would mean that you're a fool, like you're an idiot.
I've got this meme terribly backwards.
Are you thinking of galaxy brain? When you say somebody's smooth brain, that means you're calling them an idiot. Because there's no wrinkles. Like, the amount of wrinkles increases the surface area.
I guess I'm the greatest smooth brain of all. You're 100% right. And I know you're right because Urban Dictionary agrees.
I know I'm right because I've been playing Baba Is You all week and I feel so smart.
My wrinkles intensified.
It really is witchcraft. It's like some kind of, like, law of the universe that I've just stumbled upon. The fact that it works every time. I'm like, this can't maintain. It can't maintain. And yet it keeps happening. Is this humble bragging? It feels like humble bragging.
I don't think so. I think it's more of flattery to the game developer that you got a sensation so vivid that it actually sounds like you're bragging about your intellect at solving a video game.
Well, that's about that is my week. That is about the extent of my week, I think.
Well, good. I mean, listeners, it might sound like all Lawrence had to say was Baba Is You, but I must be clear. Our conversation on The Last of Us at the end of the show has got a lot of shit in it. So it wasn't a nothing of a week at all. Just in chronology, this looks worse.
It just looks like a normal week for me.
Well, in terms of my week, and I'll start with what ties in most with Baba Is You, the fresh eyes thing applied directly to my experience with Dark Souls this week.
Hey, Dark Souls Cubby Hole.
Dark Souls Cubby Hole.
So I restarted this week.
Yeah, exactly. And it went great. No, yeah, this was the week where it finally clicked.
Hooray!
At last. I had always feared it might never happen. But I'll tell you what was the biggest incentive. And I don't know if this works for a lot of people, but it certainly worked for me. Is that my friend Andy Clark, he sent me footage of him playing Dark Souls, and it was set in this far more interesting looking environment than and had far more interesting looking monster designs that I even expected the game to have. And he told me it was something more like the midpoint, but that was surprisingly the incentive I needed to know, alright, I want to see that shit for myself, and I want to, I actually... like when you're looking at Dark Souls and it's just it's hard and it's bleak and relentless, and you're still in fucking Undead Burg, and you just want out, you just want to go forward somewhere. It was something of a relief to be able to visualize what somewhere looked like, because from my perspective it looked like a big castle that I'd already been to, and it was just a castle. So this week, with that vigor, I pushed through Undeadburg. I actually beat the big dude, the Taurus boy.
Taurus demon? Fair and square this time, huh?
Fair and square. He didn't hop to his death, kicked his ass. This is the week that I encountered weapon degradation.
Yeah. Yeah,
so I got past the Drake, which functioned perfectly this time. There was no fucking around, so got straight past him. And then back up the parish, beat the board, took your advice, and struck him in the butt, which was so much more cathartic. And then I actually pushed ahead I got the gate up, which was maybe my favorite moment so far. I
did mention the concept of shortcut porn to you, didn't I?
Yeah, and exactly, and it really, really ticked that box. It was fucking wonderful. Which was so good that I was like, all right, I just want to keep pushing on them. It wasn't like a moment like the last time when I crossed the bridge and got to the bottom of the parish, I was like, okay, this is a whole new thing, and I'm going to stop playing and start again. But when I managed to do that and just went back to my bonfire, I was like, all right, let's go, let's keep going. This is great. I want to keep working at this. Pushed in, beat whatever the heavy boss dude in the parish was.
Are you talking about the armored guy in the very center of...
Yeah, that dude.
That's not a boss.
I know. It's like a mini boss. He doesn't show up. I call them bosses if they don't show up again when you kill them.
No, fair enough.
More like a mini boss. Yep, got through there. Trial and error, found the right path that I was looking for, which was towards the blacksmith, which was a new bonfire, and I was fucking thrilled. Met Katarina, the onion boy.
Oh, Sigvard. No, is it Sigmire? Sigmire. That's right.
Yeah, what a friendly dude. maybe the second and last of the friendly dudes in this game. Yeah, that was good, and went past the blacksmith, killed this, like, fucking Taurus-looking steel dude with a pitchfork, and he shot lightning.
I know the guy.
It was fun, and I went to the woods, the forest, which name
yes.
has not sank in yet, but it had, like, 3 nouns. Yeah, there were 3 people who were actually quite easy to kill, surprisingly, except when they gang up on you. And then I got to a door that needs a key that the blacksmith sells. That's way too fucking expensive. And I got to White Mist for a boss fight that a helpful sign on the ground said was a Drake. So I didn't bother going through and backtracked and that was it. Anyway, I'm having the fucking ball.
I'm glad you're on the bandwagon.
Yeah. Not sure how often Cubbyhole will continue to get updated, but we will definitely be checking in.
I look forward to living vicariously through you as you experience this game for the first time properly.
So I tried out something else in my week, because I do have a game to talk about. I realized that it's hard to keep sweet video game hot takes every week, to keep up that relentless pace. So
the content world is cutthroat.
Yeah, so I was trying to think of an interesting way to get cool, interested, slightly weebish material for the podcast at all times with the minimum amount of time investment, and I naturally degraded into anime. So I got a Crunchyroll subscription, and from here on I hope to talk a little more about anime that I have checked out, because a weird thing with me in anime, I never really look into my own thing. I wait for somebody to recommend me stuff.
Yeah, same.
So that's, and I was kind of getting frustrated about that, because I'm looking at the time in my life ahead, and I see anime all the time and go, I don't have time for that. That's too long. Surely endless.
I actually find anime a lot more approachable than most TV, because it's shorter.
Yeah, I've only really clocked that this week. I guess the investment in my head always had to be something like a Naruto level, which was the one big, other than Dragon Ball, was the one big shonen I got into. And Jesus, was Naruto a relentless slog to be a fan of.
Yeah, it didn't reward you very much, did it?
No.
I think of, the big 3, Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece.
Yeah.
Of those 3, I watched 2. One of them was Naruto, and one of them was Bleach. And as I later discovered, those were the wrong 2 to watch.
I don't regret Naruto. I regret that it didn't stop. And what's even more frustrating is now that...
Aw, fuck, Lee, you didn't watch Boruto,
I know
did you?
I didn't watch Boruto.
Because I saw you tweeting about it a few weeks ago, and I'm like, don't do this to yourself,
the frustrating...
please.
The frustrating thing is, it appeals to me. I feel like, fresh new Naruto. A chance to just start over and cut the fat. And I fool me too fucking many times, whatever the name of the guy that wrote Naruto is. Fool me no more.
Kishimoto.
Yeah, that's him. That's right. No, I can't possibly take that drug again. It's a relentlessly abusive relationship.
Uh-huh.
But no, I decided I would check out some anime that nobody's recommended at all. This week I'm going to talk about one.
Dangerous.
I'm going to talk about one. I have one for next week that I'll talk about because the show is running a little long. That I'll keep, which ties a little more into Naruto. But I eased myself into the whole concept with the reboot of Digimon Adventure.
Digimon Adventure Try?
No, that's
one.
the epilogue series. No, Digimon Adventure : is a reboot of the original Digimon Adventure with all the fancy... It's like all the fancy progress we've made in anime storytelling and visual anime language we've had in the last 20 years has been brought back to just from bottom up tell Digimon in a different way. Mm-hmm. It's obviously a fucking kid show.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it's weird because you forget that about anime if you watch a lot of it, or even any of it, really. That when the shit you grow up with as a kid, like Digimon, is significantly different to shit like Death Note or Evangelion.
Well, not Digimon Season 3, anyway. Tamers is Evangelion for kids. Straight up. I'm not joking.
Oh no, I remember it. I watched it. It's a fucking bleak. Which is also doubly weird because Digimon's gone places, man. And to go straight back to the original series in a reboot form was genuinely jarring because it's so, I hesitate to say wholesome. There's definitely like, it's still quite adult for a kid's show. Like it deals
That's why I liked it back then.
Yeah, and that's what really differentiates it from, say, Pokemon or other sort of cartoony shows like that, Gundam and shit. Is that it genuinely has a quite a, like, I don't know, worn view of the adult world, and it kind of permeates through the story at all angles. And it genuinely suckered me right back in on those grounds. But as the adventure starts to really step into like the traditional, you're in the Digimon world and you're just battling things to stop the bad guy, it slowly started dawning on me, oh, this is still definitely a show for children. And it's not weird enough to put me off continuing to watch it. There's only 7 episodes of it out at time of recording, and I've enjoyed them. I've enjoyed what they've done with the characters and that they've kind of honed in a little better what their traits are. Anyway, it's really cute, and I recommend checking it out if you like Digimon. It never gets to the creeping highs. Like, it starts out, it's basically a retelling of the Digimon movie.
Oh, that wasn't a very good movie at all, though, with like the virus and shit.
Yeah, they compress it in a lot of ways, and I really liked it as a kid. I mean, it's not deep. It was just pretty. But they basically open the story with a compressed version of that, and then they've changed a lot of how the world works from there on, based around what the hell's going on with the virus thing, which is a different virus and it looks different and everything and has a different backstory. But the general vibes are the same. There is a evil monster who they have to go into the internet to beat up with War Greymon, or Omnimon, that's what he's called, isn't he?
Yes, I think I watched all the original Digimon TV shows back in the day. I didn't watch Frontier. I watched Adventure, Adventure 2, Tamers. Skipped Frontier because there was no Digimon partners in that. It was like a Sentai one. No, I ain't about that shit.
Nah, shit.
And then I watched Data Squad.
You watched
Apparently
Data
there's one
Squad?
called like, is it Cross Wars, Xerox Wars? Yeah, I never watched that one.
No, I didn't watch. I didn't even watch whatever that Data one was. You said
Data Squad. It was like the one after Frontier, and Frontier is the one I just skipped.
Yeah. I watched 1 and 2 and Tamers. I never watched Try. I've yet to watch Try, I should say. I would definitely want to.
It's on my list. I'll get around to it. It's just, you see a DVD for it in HMV every once in a while, and it's like, oh, wow, 3 episodes of this anime for £40.
Yeah,
I think not.
Yeesh. But
I would suggest you taking another look at Tamers just briefly to compare it to Evangelion, because oh boy, I'm not joking, man. I don't mean that in terms of tone. I mean in terms of like direct comparisons can be made between those two series.
Jesus. You know what? I'll just look into it and get back to you. It's been a long time. I remember. I can kind of get what you're getting at, but I'll do due research. So the game I played this week ties in, and hopefully I'll keep this short. But this year I started playing Digimon World Next Order.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
back to Digimon World, huh? Old school. Yeah. Is that a new one?
It's a remake of the very first one.
Ah, okay. You know what? I feel like that was a game that needed a remake because the first Digimon game has not aged well at all.
Right.
I tried to get into it back when I was having, my Digimon phase when I was watching the anime, but I bounced right the fuck off it because I needed to have a guide handy to get anywhere in order to get any good Digivolution forms.
Yeah.
It was always everything. I tried to make like their stats nice and balanced, and all that resulted in was just getting Numemon all the time.
100%. Numemon is that game's fail state.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, the original Digimon World for the PlayStation 1 was a relentlessly hard JRPG meets Tamagotchi pet-raising sim. Your adventure was dependent on a Digimon growing up by you raising their stats by looking after them day to day and cleaning up their shit, literally, and feeding them and checking their mood, while also running a town sim. And it's a game super difficult, and as a kid I fucking loved it. I didn't play the later ones, which apparently went straight dungeon crawler instead. So this one was a game that for the longest time I was so into that, like, I played it for years after getting it in the early 2000s, and it got to a point where as a teenager I legitimately signed a petition for Bandai Namco to remake it.
Nice. You got your wish, man.
But yeah, I got it.
Which goes to show your vote matters.
Always vote. Anyway, the conversation I want to bring up relatedly to this is that I want to talk about the value of quitting a game.
Oh boy.
Because Digimon World Next Order is an okay video game. And I feel if I went back to play the original, I'd feel very much the same.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, is it on par in quality with the first one?
Yeah, no, I feel like the first...
And the only reason why you like the first one is just rose-tinted glasses?
You see, no, I like the first one, and here's the thing that we lose as kids. When you got a game, like, as a kid, if you were like me, you tended not to get a lot of games a lot of the time. So when you got one, you really, really wanted it to fucking ride out the storm between, like, half a year between your next one. Mm-hmm. And Digimon World was, like, one of the best for that, because it was just so relentlessly difficult, and the system in it, in which your Digimon ages over time, dies, and you just start again, was perfect for a kid with time to kill, because you just had this thing you just chipped away at bit by bit. You were only incrementally changing the story and advancing in this game so gradually, glacially, that I genuinely got the maximum amount of value out of Digimon World. I beat it even, which is insane to think about, because it's got to be one of the most difficult games I've ever beat. And I don't even, like, I played it a couple of years ago again, and it is rough.
Yeah, like the Digimon game that I had, which was Digimon World 2003, or 3 if you're in North America, like, it was much more user-friendly. I still didn't beat it, because it's so long. It's really, really long. I
think that was more like a traditional JRPG, wasn't it? There wasn't so much animal raising.
Yeah, it was like, it was more Pokemon, but with like a side of Persona in there. Yeah. That's about it.
Mm-hmm. Which is something that the series has kept going quite well recently. But when I seen that they had a remake for Digimon World, I was like, fuck yes, dream come true. To be fair, the systems they've made, the changes they've made have been mostly for the better. You have 2 Digimon instead of 1, so you get to see more of the evolutions over time. And the system for figuring out what Digimon you can get from the Digimon you have evolutionarily is a lot clearer. And a lot more rewarding to sink time into. That said, as a full-grown-ass man, I've played many as a video game, and I do not have the time or patience for a long-winded death rebirth cycle anymore, because the grind is just simply unbearable. Yeah. For Animal Crossing, it was fine. Stardew Valley, it's fine, because the grind in those cases is the reward.
It's the core gameplay loop. You're meant to unwind with a bit of grind.
Yeah, exactly. But the grind in a narrative-based adventure game with monster collecting elements is not the same. You're literally being gate-kept from content and progression by a system that resets itself and only incrementally gets easier every time you do it, which can take days. And it was fucking rough. But I found by playing this, sometimes you actually salvage your opinion on a game by knowing when to quit. Because I got to a certain point. I think it was like the halfway point in this game, because I think there's 4 chapters and I finished the second one, and it's got this real twee, barely written anime thing going on. Almost visual novel-esque, with the most insufferable characters, which the first mercifully didn't have. It was very sparse on writing. But this one, it actually had a story. It was getting a little more interesting as it went along, but you have to have peak Digimon to get the story to move forward at all. Like, everything is your progress is constantly halted by these tremendously difficult battles where you need to have all the money in the world for all the items in the world, plus extra mega level Digimon that work together well and have good moves. And you can only do this by playing and grinding the system a good number of times to even unlock a lot of this stuff to carry over to the next Digimon. And then you get maybe a window of about 3 or 4 days to make the best of them, because they're going to die and they're going to restart the cycle. And there was a point, basically, I finished this big part of the story and it was starting to open up. And my latest Digimon had died. And I said, fuck it. No more. I can't be arsed doing that circle again.
Yeah, the fact that they die is a bit strange.
Yeah.
And frustrating.
I think it's generally, again, it worked as a kid because it meant like you had to work. You got to see more of the Digimon, and you got a new attempt, a new opportunity to change what you did the previous time. It was quite it was quite involving, if a little difficult.
Especially
foreboding.
Because unlike Pokemon, like Digimon are explicitly like they're people.
Yeah.
Like these are people, and they have a lifespan of like a month, and then they die, which is kind of fucked up for a kid to have to deal with.
I quit after a certain point because I just couldn't be arsed going through the cycle again. But I actually think that was the best thing I could have done, because part of the game that I played, I have fond memories for. And I feel like if I had pushed on, I would have eventually diminished those fond memories and got sick of the grind and looked at the game in general and got, ugh, awful experience. But I stepped back, got out early, and was able to say, well, like, I'd recommend half a game to people.
That's not to the game's credit, though.
No, I know, but I want to say,
I mean, if you choose to get going whilst before things get rough, that's on you. That's not. I feel like that's a very, I'm trying to preserve my feel good mindset, which is understandable. But like, for me, it's always a matter of weighing up the value of the product. So of the content. I'll play it to completion, and if it was bad, that's the game's fault.
Yeah, no, I agree, but the only thing that actually matters in the world is your experience, right? The product doesn't care if you like it or not at the end of the day. When you sink time into something, you just gotta know. What I'm talking about is you gotta know when to say, when is enough for me?
As it turns out, the worms in my brain demand that enough for me is when there is no more. Unless things get really, real bad, but that's, my tolerance for these things is frustratingly high.
But I mean, that's what I'm trying to breach, like, I think your perspective here is the normal perspective, like the common perspective, and I think it's because we're raised that way. Like, you don't just start stuff and not finish stuff. That's how you're taught to live a life. But there's loads of shit that's not worth finishing, and you can actually get the best out of something and still look at it fondly and gain some information and experience in life from stuff halfway or less even, and walk away from it with knowing that you're fond of that, and it was only downhill. What you can see a precipitous fall ahead and go, I don't need that, and I walk away and I feel great. And I feel like we haven't really.
I can never really decide whether or not something was worth dropping off until I've finished it, and then I can go, yeah, that was worth dropping off. I'll never be able to do that in the thick of it.
But I mean, like, it's the same thing that happened when I played the first Persona, right? I got what value I could perceive I was going to get from it. I wasn't enjoying the story. I couldn't see it twisting or turning anywhere interesting that would personally involve me. But I got all the little callbacks for the full Persona lineage that I was really cool to see. The Persona genetics were there, and I was happy for it. But I was happy also to leave halfway through the game or whatever, wherever I was, because I wasn't going to get more from it. And I feel like it's something that people should probably try to practice more, right? Like, it's just not something people talk about is giving up when the going's good and it's not going to get better. I mean, there's loads of experiences, right, that you can't tell if it's going to get better. Sometimes something is hard, like Dark Souls, and you don't know specifically how rewarding it's going to be until you sink more time through the harder parts. And so it's hard to say on a case-by-case basis what exactly qualifies for getting out early.
I think for me, there's just more bitterness to be had in unfinished business.
I see. That's what I mean. I guess I understand that.
Like, I mean, I've spoken about how Bravely Default is holding my new Nintendo 3DS hostage right now, because I've been like sort of putting it off, and I've been making progress every once in a while, but I don't really like that game at all. But for me to stop now, when I'm so close to the end, would there be more feel bad than if I had just finished it? Once I've finished it, I can click it up, I can put it on the shelf, and I can go, I have defeated you, Bravely Default. I no longer have to worry about you for the rest of my life. I no longer have to spend brain cycles worrying about you holding my DS hostage. I have defeated you, and now I go on and enjoy the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But if I stop now, every time I think about Bravely Default, I'll be like, never got that closure.
But that's my point, right? Because when you go back to play Bravely Default, you're not going to get that closure. You're going to get the closure of you don't have to think about it, sure, but the closure of that was a satisfying ending is never going to happen, because the surmount to get there was so high. And
not quite. I think this might be a brainworms thing. Like, you have crystal wizards, I have brainworms.
Yeah, maybe.
Where it's like, you know, I can think back on that game and go, that wasn't a very good game, I didn't enjoy it, and that is the extent of how I will feel about it, provided, of course, that I beat it. But if I don't beat it, when I think about it, I'll think to myself, that wasn't a very good game and I didn't enjoy it, and I will feel it in my chest that I'm not done yet.
Yeah, that certainly sounds brainwormy to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, once I have finished it, I can safely put it away in a wee box, both literally and metaphorically, decompartmentalize it, and then never have to think about it ever again.
Yeah, that's
purely from a utilitarian viewpoint. There is less suffering to me in completing a game that I didn't like very much, as opposed to leaving it be and having to like think about how I never finished it and how it's like conquered me or whatever.
Well, let's say anyway, for another example, that because Bravely Default, that to me, for you, sounds like sunk cost fallacy anyway. Like, you are so fucking deep in that game.
It's a prison of my own making.
Yeah. So, I mean, the only way you're possibly ever going to get any value out of it is to finally finish it. You know, like, that's one example. But there's got to be a bunch of games that you can sink some time into, but not go so deep and say, you know, it's just not ticking the boxes for me, and just back out before the going gets too far.
Persona 1 is a good example of that, because I completed the Seebeck storyline.
But you didn't go for the Ice Princess one or whatever it is.
I learned that one was there, and I was like, you know what? Once I complete the main storyline, that is sufficient.
Yeah, fair enough. But
that satisfies the mental compulsions, so there you go, I'm good.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just trying to think of like an example where you get sort of a quarter into a story, like pretty early on, and you realize this just this isn't engaging, and I don't want any more to do with it, you know, and not see it like a loss.
Devil May Cry 2?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good example. Like, you know, pick it up for an hour and go like, there's nothing here, and put it back down. You know, I feel like there's got to be like a bar graph to this. You know, there's got to be some cold numerical way to figure this out. Like,
there's like a slump at some point. There's like a statistical slump.
There's like a line. You know, like, so I have in my head, so here's an example. You assign the elements of a game that you need to be there to enjoy a game a value of like 2, and add them all up. And that's your perfect game score. It ticks all the boxes if it has all those things, and they get a score of 2. And so, well, I mean, for me, right, and I have here Dark Souls as an example. You know, it ticks my tourism box, manageable challenge box. It's not like ridiculous challenge; it's manageable. It's not just like relentlessly cruel. There's a way to do it. A narrative intrigue box, street cred box. You know, kids will respect me for beating Dark Souls. Seeing cool...
The youth.
Yeah, the youth. There's a seeing cool concepts and design box, you know, or sort of like a general creativity on display box, I guess. And general gameplay reward box. All right? And so I assign all those values to that's a total of 12. Dark Souls at its best, if it has all those scores maxed out, is 12. It's the perfect game. But at the moment, right, the challenge is so high, it's killing me. So I say I give that a 1. And basically, I've forgotten what the story is, so I give that a 0. So the story intrigue's gone. And I'm stuck in the same area for ages. So tourism is down to 1 because I'm not seeing new stuff. And so we're down to 8 out of 12 already. And so then you just got to assign a number that's like lower than that, obviously, like 4, that you would say if a game is a 4, I should pack it in.
Do you consider this formula as you're playing a game, or is it something that you decide after the fact?
No, but that's what I mean. You have to. The only way this works, the only way that this whole conversation makes any sense is if you quit. So it has to be an ongoing process, like a constantly changing.
I think it's because I generally don't systemize my way of thinking whilst I'm enjoying a piece of work, because I run afoul of overthinking something while I'm trying to enjoy it.
Certainly, like in the midst of playing something, I agree. But like, there's got to be days when you're not playing something, and you're weighing up which game you want to play in your free time, and you're looking at the box to something that you haven't been enjoying, and you're reflecting on why that might be. Surely that's the time to think about the score, right?
No, I don't, because I don't weigh up what game I'm going to play on a given day. It's
compulsively pick the one that you have been playing.
Yes, I play it until it's finished, Lee, and then when it's finished, I play a new game. Because if I'm growing tired of a game, then I take a break, and then I come back to it later. If I get tired of a game and play a different game, then I know that I will never come back to that game, because I'd much rather play something else, which means that it has defeated me, and the brain worms get in.
All right.
It's a utilitarian decision. The suffering I would get from not finishing it is greater over a greater period of time than if I had just finished it, so I will finish it.
That makes... This explains a lot about you as a person, I think. The breaching of this conversation, it might actually be beneficial for our listeners to understand what makes a Lawrence. What kind of what of a man is he? He's a man with brain worms.
It's insanity.
But I mean, like, to be fair, I have the other problem, which is that I can quit games too early, or I compulsively play too many games, and just as you said, like, you get distracted and you end up leaving games behind, and sometimes those games can be genuinely good, but I'm not feeling it, and I don't come back to them for years, which would, by your logic, kill you.
Unfinished business. You want that closure.
Yeah.
You want to put it on the shelf and go, that was nice, and seal off that little chapter of your life, and you're good.
So I just feel like I've been trying to work out a system, like a bar for disillusionment, just to kind of comprehend because I also have that wanting to clear the mental space of, that's not a game I need to consider anymore. Obviously, I have more room than you for other games, but there's still a hard limit there somewhere, and I feel like trying to devise a system like this, as rough and unrefined as it is, would help me limit to some degree which games to stop sinking time into and get out while the going is good. Because you get positive experiences, like with Digimon World, which was a game that was okay. Probably actually a bad game. Not one I would recommend to people unless they have a lot of free time, they really love Digimon, and they are okay with games being okay and then maybe bad near the end. So obviously not a hard recommendation. A solid like 5 out of 10. But it crossed the line. It got to the 4 or whatever, out of 12, and I was like, fuck it, fine, great. It's downhill from here. And now I look at that game. I took it off the PlayStation. And I look at it and go, I enjoyed the most I could out of that, and I'm happy with that. I'll never find out how the story ends. That would be worse if the story were any good.
I hasten to add that I'm not entirely a prisoner of my own mind. There are reasons that I would stop playing a game. For instance, if it's like a game that does not end, like Animal Crossing or an MMO, I would feel pretty happy stopping
Of
playing
course,
that game.
Games that are
which
gameplay loops with no narrative.
live services.
Yeah.
Which may be a reason why I avoid those games. Also, trophies. I'll stop on the occasion. I don't make it. It doesn't happen often. Multiplayer trophies, that stops the dead.
Yeah. You'll be seething with rage, but you'll let it happen.
That's an external force, basically saying, no, you must stop because we made a bad decision because we're idiots. Wolfenstein: The New Order. Sorry, not the New Order. The New Colossus. It has a trophy called Mein Leben, which is basically, Mein Leben. You have to finish the game on the hardest difficulty, and if you die, you restart from the beginning. There's no saves. It's bullshit. It's the worst. I genuinely gave it an honest shot. I gave it I want to say maybe 6 tries. I could never breach the 3rd level because that game has unskippable in-game in-engine cutscenes that are minutes long, and I was like, okay, I have to make a hard choice here. I evidently you value your time a lot more than I do, but I do value my time, and this game was not valuing my time, so I needed to make a decision to stop.
Took your brainworm medicine that day.
Well, I mean, yeah, there is a threshold after which I will say, enough is enough. It just seems that my threshold is a great deal higher than yours.
100%.
For better or for worse.
Yeah. There's no objective value here. These are just 2 different brains and 2 different ways of living. It's just interesting. But, good insight for our listeners. We're both fucked. But maybe if their brain's more like mine than yours, they want to assign a score. And if it's more like yours than mine, God help you.
It has its perks. It means I can be the person who plays Persona all the way through and goes, "It's not for you, don't play it," and then be ignored.
Exactly. No, I obviously reap the benefits of this quite a bit. What you want to do is befriend a guy like you, not be a guy like you.
It's good to be Lawrence adjacent.
Yeah, exactly. It is very beneficial, very rewarding. So, Last of Us, spoiler conversation. Hit me with it. What's your thoughts?
It was good. It was quite good. But I'll be honest. I hesitate to use the word overrated because it's such a subjective phrase that's useless in any kind of actual capacity. But I usually try to adjust my expectations accordingly whenever I play or watch something. But, I've been getting... I started playing this at roughly around the same time the hype for Last of Us 2 was really hitting its stride, Lots of, The Last of Us Part 1, it's one of the greatest games ever made, yada, yada, it's a masterpiece, Neil Druckmann is a genius, yada, yada. I suspect that may have poisoned the well a little bit for me.
100%.
It wasn't as dreary and dour as I was expecting, which is good. In fact, it was just dreary and dour enough that I was like, okay, I get it, that's cool. I did like the ending. I like the ending a lot.
I think the best thing about the first one is that it's not really all that miserable in the moment-to-moment because the 2 lead characters are quite compelling. They're kind of buddy-buddy, Ellie and Joel.
For the most part, yeah.
They've got, on the occasional times when they fall out with each other is when it gets a little bleak, and of course when Joel is fucking unconscious for one of the darkest chapters of the story. Shit gets rough, but for the most part of their adventure, they just chatter to each other about who they are and all their little quirks and likes, and you grow with them, and it's adorable, and it's a ray of sunshine that I'm sure is utterly absent in the second one as Ellie goes on a solo murder mission.
So I at no point in this game was I surprised. Nothing surprised. Well, actually, that's not true. There was one moment that I was surprised, but I'll get into that in a minute. But at no point was I saw everything that was going to happen coming a mile away, including the ending, although I did enjoy the ending for what it was. It's like, okay, so I know a sequel happens, I know Ellie's in it, and I know that she's alive, and that the clickers haven't went away. The zombie problem isn't been solved, so this is going to be a Shaggy Dog story one way or another.
Yeah.
So I was thinking to myself, okay, well, if it's going to be a Shaggy Dog story, how's it going to end?
Yeah.
And then you go, well, they get there, and Ellie's body is the source of the cure. I wonder how that's going to turn out. Let me guess. It requires cutting her up and Joel's not going to be cool with it. And lo and behold, that was the premise. Turns out Joel's the villain of the game, which I did like. That was the thing. I did like that about the story, which is, yeah, guess what? Joel's a fuck. He's a motherfucker. He's the villain.
Mm-hmm.
He's the bad guy here.
I think a lot has been made, I guess, about how the plot kind of doesn't end how people expected, in the sense that either they didn't want Joel to be the bad guy, which is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. They have the rug pulled under them so much by Joel being the bad guy that they actively think there's no message there, or that it's a sick, twisted message that says you should just do the wrong thing.
I guess people had deluded themselves into thinking that just because Joel was nice to Ellie, that he was a good person.
Yeah. It's interesting that the conversation I often see is not so much that their relationship preempts the decision Joel makes, and that's the sort of core behind why he does what he does. It's not just that he's an asshole, but he genuinely learns to feel for Ellie and doesn't want... He makes the worst choice to keep that dwindling relationship alive. But I feel there's been something of a fundamental missing of that relationship in all discourse of The Last of Us, which I think is the part that's genuinely good about how The Last of Us is done. I actually bought into their relationship quite well, and when we talk about, like, yeah, it's a Shaggy Dog story, and yeah, the decision's ambiguous, and well, it's not really ambiguous, but it's...
No, it's pretty definitely, this was not a good thing that you've done here.
I think the relationship ending is what's ambiguous. I mean, what it means to them at the end, that's the ambiguous part. Mm-hmm. And that's why I always saw it as an ambiguous ending, because the plot was never what was really important in that game, and it's established really early on that that's not what's driving the story here, but
it was the friends we made along the way.
the many stages of growth between Joel and Ellie, and I think it sticks the landing really fucking hard on that particular part, and maybe only that part. Mm-hmm. But I also, there's so much discussion about, like, that they don't resolve the world or whatever, or they, you know, it's a letdown, or it's an actively wrong message or something like that. And it's just like,
I think that's just people who can't really deal with ambiguous endings.
I guess, but it's just so missing the forest for the trees. It's unfucking believable.
I mean, I it's one of those situations where, you know, it becomes a real problem in the sequel, from what I've heard, but they only toy with it here, which is the idea of you're doing the bad thing, and you know you're doing the bad thing, and it's like, I don't want to do this bad thing, but you gotta do the bad thing to make the story progress. Fortunately, in this game, they don't make a big deal of shaming you for actions that you sort of had to do in order to complete the game. Which is good. You get a little bit near the end where, you know, you break into the surgery.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, I'm trying to save the world here. Don't come any closer. And, you know, you bet your ass I did everything in my power to...
Not shoot him in the head.
Well, I was like, okay, well, man, I'm going to try and leave the room. Okay, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to fire a warning shot next to his head. Oh, no, that didn't work. I'm going to stand really, really close to him. Is he going to try and struggle with me? Nope, that's not going to work. So I shot him in the leg, but that killed him instantly because Neil Druckmann decided that we needed to kill the doctor for this story to be effective. Yeah. You shoot him in the leg, and then he instantly dies, and the nurse goes, "You animal, you savage!" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, all right, let's get this over with." So the one part of the game that did surprise me, which was surprise cannibals, which was not, you know, in hindsight it seems obvious, but you know, there's the big scene where she's in the cage or the cell. And you see your man chopping up the body. And I'm like, oh, we're doing this?
Yeah, we're really going there.
we're going the cannibal direction? I thought, like, wow, you know, I thought that Neil Druckmann was a bit too highbrow. They go for the schlocky, it's a colony of cannibals, oh my god, direction. But hey, they went there. And you know what? That was probably my favorite part of the game.
Yeah, it's maybe the most engaging chapter of the story. Mostly because the dynamic is really fucked between Joel and Ellie at that point, but it's also just the most fucked part of the story. It's when it slips slightly more into horror, which makes it slightly more interesting, because Zombies ain't scary.
I didn't think so. I was never really scared at any point in this game.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
Honest.
Zombies ain't scary. But Cannibal Dude, I mean, and Cannibal Posse.
Yeah, David. I like David a lot, actually.
Yeah, wasn't that Nolan North?
It was Nolan North, and I was really surprised by that, because I didn't realize that right away until I saw the credits. I was like, that was Nolan North? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's like a legitimate acting credit.
I didn't even it didn't even sound like him at all. He was doing a really good job there. And you know what? You know what's really kind of weird? Until they started dropping, like, not so subtle hints that David was a pedo, I generally didn't hold any of it against him. I was like, yeah, dude, it's alright. I get it. You know, it's fine. Oh, he's a pedo. Fine. Okay. I hate you now. Sorry, dude.
Yeah. Cannibal, I understand.
I mean, you know, cannibalism, you know, times are tough, the winter's harsh, I get it, you know.
And I'm a pedophile, man.
Yeah, you know, just in case for a moment there was some moral ambiguity going on, but don't worry, Neil was there.
Yeah.
Neil got your back. Just in case you were feeling conflicted for a moment, Neil's got you covered.
What I wanted to ask, because this was my prevailing thought at the end, but I wondered if it struck you, because you played it in a far different time than I did. When you finished it, did you have any inclination that you would need or want to play a sequel?
None whatsoever.
Yeah, right.
None whatsoever. In fact, you know what? I felt the same way about the DLC.
The DLC is definitely unnecessary.
It was a wet fart in comparison immediately after playing the campaign, because not only is it really short and insubstantial, but whatever substance there is spoiled by the end of the main game, where Ellie all but tells you the plot to the DLC, including the ending.
That's right.
I mean, so the DLC has like 2 story threads running side by side, which is a lie. It's one story thread, which is her and Riley. It's just padded out by like a filler scene in a mall where she's looking after Joel while he's in like traction after getting impaled by some rebar.
It felt like it was designed to be the first time in the original plot where you would play as Ellie as a preamp to the later scene where you would take control. And they had already basically built it as a flashback when she tells the story, or tells the story at some point. And then you play through the Left Behind section, and then it would cut back to the Rebar Joel section. And then they just thought, this kills the pacing. Dead. Let's cut it up and sell it.
There's the looking after Joel in the winter in the mall, in the shopping center, which is just, you go get some medical supplies, and you come back, and you fight a whole bunch of dudes and zombies in the process, and that's it. That's literally all it is. Like, no plot takes place, no character development takes place, that's literally all that happens. I mean, the only interesting thing that goes on there is that it's the only time where you ever get to pit scavengers and infected against one another. That's neat.
Yeah.
That's, you know, you can toss a brick and they're fighting each other, and you're like, oh, that's cool. That's about the only thing I had going for it. And then there's the her and Riley thing, which, like I said, it's a foregone conclusion, because not only do you know that Ellie makes it out fine, but you know that Riley dies because Ellie tells you that she dies. So the entire time you're just bored. It's like, okay, come on, let's get to the bit. Get to the bit with the zombies, just waiting for the zombies to turn up. There they are. Okay, that means it's coming to an end. It's over, thank goodness. Now I can stop playing.
Yeah. It's very insubstantial.
It was boring.
But it's interesting you playing it in a post Last of Us 2 world, because and having the same reaction to the ending of the story, that a sequel was wholly unwarranted. At the time when it was finished, I remember Shane and I, who were both quite high on it. Shane, my brother, by the way, my brother Shane.
Gotta get that. Gotta establish that.
We were both quite high on the game, but we both agreed that there was 100% no need for a sequel. And when it was announced, like, we had the same conversation, and neither of us had any fucking care in the world for it. He was just like, I'm not gonna play it. He just flat out refused. And over time, I've been looking at it and going, maybe I will. I feel like eventually I will. And the more I think about it, the more I think, maybe I won't. Maybe I just don't fucking have to. You know, like...
Yeah, I mean, but the first one, it was, like, so highly praised. Like, I mean, I was saying earlier that I felt like homework. I was like, yeah, okay, fine. you know, people not leaving me alone until I finally played it. And, you know, I am dodging spoilers my entire life just on the off chance that I might play it. So it's like, oh, a great weight has been lifted from my shoulders. That's good.
Yeah, certainly.
But yeah, I mean, I was playing it out of a sense of obligation more than anything else.
You know, I had the same obligation when I played Red Dead Redemption 2, which I picked up. It was another game that I thought 100% didn't need to exist. Because Red Dead Redemption isn't that old and still plays quite well and does a good job setting up its world. And I played maybe 4 hours of Red Dead Redemption 2, where it had basically just about wrapped up the prologue. And I was like, I can't fucking bear to go on. I didn't ask for this. I'm playing it as an obligation because it was lent to me. and that everybody's talking about it at the moment. And, you know, that conversation died very quickly, I feel, about Red Dead Redemption 2. I feel like people obviously still play it and still think quite highly of it.
No, the crunch conversation took over very quickly.
Well, there was that, yeah, and it was felt 100%. And I feel like it would be felt the same way that Last of Us 2 would be felt, in that it was sheer excess in every element, and you're going, this doesn't even tell anything better. This isn't any better. This is just more. But I having had that experience, now remembering that, I feel even more disinclined about the sequel to Last of Us, because I feel like I should have trusted my instincts on that occasion, and if I don't follow my instincts this occasion, I now double down on being a fucking idiot. The lost cause fallacy of, like, tunnel worm syndrome.
Oh, the sunk cost.
Yeah,
it's like, in for a penny, may as well.
That's it.
I will say this, I did like that the game had there was like an in-world justification for players' behavior of scavenging and scrolling through every possible nook and cranny looking for bits and pieces.
Yeah, no, that's true. It is a good character way to keep the gameplay consistent, which is in itself it's not a terrible gameplay loop either. You know, like it's perfectly enjoyable. It's by no means revolutionary. You know what, I tried to, when the remaster came out for PS4, I played it on PS3 when it came out, and then when the remaster came out, and it came with my PS4, I think, and I booted it up, and I actually quite liked the multiplayer of The Last of Us.
Yeah.
So I booted it up. Because
I wanted to talk to you about that. We'll get on. Continue.
We'll get to it. But so I started. I played the multiplayer, but then I was like, oh, you know what? I feel like I could give the story another go. I got like half an hour into it, and I was like, I actually don't really enjoy playing this. Like, I'm glad I beat it, but it wasn't a compelling enough loop to say I need to suffer through this twice.
The story it's got a nice technique to it. It plays a neat trick where it starts off really strong and it ends really strong. So looking back on it 5 years down the line, you remember those parts and you go, yeah, that was really good, wasn't it? You know, you could afford to slump a little bit in the middle, which I think it does.
Yeah, 100%.
Like
you meet his brother and shit, and you're in the wee fucking cozy suburban village and stuff. Fucking world is grinded to a halt.
No, I didn't even mind that. It was like the second half of Pittsburgh, you know, where you Henry and I think Sam, I think his name is, you and the two black fellas, the two brothers. Where it's like that segment from beginning to the end stretches on so long. Like you get to a nice little suburban burg where there's like a sniper guy there for some reason who's crazy.
That's right.
And they're still sending that armored APC, that APC, don't want to be redundant, that APC after you with like a whole bunch of like scavengers. And I'm thinking to myself, what are these guys doing? Like,
this is actually the part I was talking about. I just got the characters in the scene mixed up.
Like, look at this video game shit. Look at this video game shit where, like, this community is throwing so many resources after these two people that I'm thinking to myself, this right here is a lack of effective leadership. That's what this is.
So what's your thoughts on the multiplayer? Did you try it?
No, I didn't, because I don't have multiplayer. I don't have PS Plus because it's on PS4, right? Which is which really, you've spoken about crystal lizards, but I have brain worms of my own regarding trophies, which is that I'll be like, that was good. I really like that. What's the trophies look like? New Game Plus. Okay, fair enough. Get all the usual. That's fine. Play it on the hardest difficulty. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Scroll all the way to the bottom. 6 online-only multiplayer trophies required for the platinum. Fuck.
That's right.
In this game, in fucking The Last of Us, there's more.
Yeah.
I can't believe it that there would be, like, in addition to a somewhat, ancillary multiplayer mode, that they would have multiplayer-only trophies. God damn it, that's the one, that's the sin! That's the mortal sin.
100%.
And it basically just, like, went, all the goodwill that I had been saving up for some time just let out, like, steam, just like, me out the side, like a pin in a balloon.
There's been so many games that have fucked you over in this particular regard.
It's good for the podcast, because it means I won't be faffing around for another week trying to get all the trophies, but
that is good. I never considered that I actually now have to listen week on week to you chasing these things.
So it's like, hey, Lawrence, what'd you do this week? Oh, still getting the level 40 on the multiplayer.
Yeah.
Last of Us. And like,
I was just
wow, real riveting
chipping
content
away at the
there.
grind. Well, it's kind of a shame, because it would have been interesting to have you play the multiplayer, because I think it actually makes more of the gameplay mechanics of The Last of Us than the main game. Mm-hmm. It refines them and trims away at the fat of them to such a degree that it makes a really kind of like Splinter Cell experience.
Okay.
It's a very weird multiplayer. They're like teams of 4. This has been a while since I played it, but it was like teams of 4, and it's really about crouching around, sneaking in these quite dense but small maps. Mm-hmm. You have echolocation on a cooldown, mm-hmm. and you have to put like Counter-Strike resources into it to be any good at finding out where people are. And people blend so well into the environment that you genuinely can be caught off guard by opponent's team just hiding in plain sight. So it's a proper stealthy multiplayer game. And I had always kind of wanted something like that. And I thought I would get it from the Metal Gear Solid 4 multiplayer, and I did not. But it genuinely worked or I felt it worked in The Last of Us multiplayer.
That's a shame to hear, because I really like stealth in a multiplayer context. I've always liked it. I mean, I liked the Assassin's Creed multiplayer. The Assassin's
Creed one's the one I was just thinking of.
That's a franchise where if you had told me before it happened that it had like a really good multiplayer, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Don't be stupid. That's like a single-player stealth game. What are you on about? And then I played it, and I was like, this is amazing. This is fantastic. I can't believe they managed to pull this off.
Anyway, Last of Us. I'm glad you beat it. You're now caught up with the social...
the zeitgeist. Yeah.
The zeitgeist, exactly. I'm sure you'll get around to 2 at some point in your storied
in my life. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can tell me how that goes.
Yeah, and podcast episode 3073. Like,
yeah, you see, we can't go that far because you get, if I remember correctly, you get cancelled in 350.
Oh, I see. Well, that puts a time limit on me, doesn't it? We'll get the 348, and you'll be like, so, but Last of Us, and I'll be like, shit! Ah, fuck! Light a fire into my ass.